In your game, there may be actions or events that you want to fire off in synchronization with sounds or music. One of the simplest ways to do this is via event tracks in the sequencer editor. In the Magic Forest area of the demonstration level, there's a short cutscene that's started by this blueprint over here. This can be triggered in a couple of different ways. Firstly, there's this magical spell in the forest area as well here, and if we look in that blueprint, we can see that when the spell is complete, over here we've got a public variable that references this blueprint and triggers this custom event. Secondly, we can just do a quick preview by pressing the Q key. Our level sequence is referenced here, and when the game begins, here in the initialize section, we create a level sequence player that refers to that sequence. So when we press Q, or we get a trigger from the other blueprint, we're going to play that level sequence player. Let's open up that sequence. Here we have an audio track that was created in the usual way, track, audio track, and then we've added a piece of audio to it, which in this case is a piece of music. And again, we did that in the usual way by clicking on the plus sign here and choosing our audio. We've also got a fade track that's used to hide some of the camera movements. We're actually going to mute this audio track later on and play the music back from the blueprint itself, but it's useful to have it here for the moment as a visual reference. What we want to do is to synchronize some events in the game world to this piece of music. Now, the events that we want to sync already exist within the Magic Cutscene Controller blueprint. We've got a finale event that's going to trigger off a whole set of emitters in the game and some particle effects that are going to fire off in time with the beat of the music. As I just mentioned, we're actually going to play our music from the blueprint in a minute, so we've also got a Start Music custom event. These are created in the usual way, right click, custom event, and then simply adding an appropriate name. Let's start by adding our Cutscene Controller Blueprint actor to the sequence. So in the level, we'll select it, and then in the sequencer, we'll add actor to sequencer, BP, DC, Magic Cutscene Controller. Now we'll add an event track, and we'll rename it Particle Events. We'll start with our finale event here, so I'm just going to scrub through and find that moment. So it's about there, let's have a listen. So with that particle events track selected, I'm going to press return to create a new event. I'm going to right click and edit its properties. Now I actually know from bitter experience that it's actually 8.32 seconds. And now I'm going to tie this event to one of the custom events within my blueprint. Since this event track is within our blueprint actor reference, we can here use the quick bind function and open up that blueprint, go to class, and we'll actually find all of the custom events that exist within that blueprint. In this example, I want the finale custom event. And that opens up the sequence director, and we can see that by doing this, it's automatically attached this event to a call function node that calls the custom event. So if we double click on that, it will take us back to the blueprint to that finale custom event. In our blueprint, there's an array for all the emitters, and that's public, so they've all been added here in the default settings of that blueprint. Going back to the blueprint, we could see what this does is it gets all the emitters in turn and activates them. It also scales the emitters to make them a bit bigger. It is the finale after all. So let's check the whole process. The idea is that the cutscene starts when I've successfully completed this final magic spell. So let's just try that. Going to interact, pressing E. And then if I remember correctly, the spell works like this. You return to the start, you go to the second one, and then you linger on the final one. And then we fade into the cutscene, music starts, and we're looking for our finale, particle events, and there they are. So let's just go through that again. There's lots of particles in our game level, and they've been attached to this blueprint using this public variable, this array of emitters, which you can see here. When I completed that magic slider spell, it got a reference to the cutscene and it triggered this custom event which played our sequence. And in our sequence, we had this event here that was synchronized with that climactic part of the music, and this again referred back to a custom event in the Magic Cutscene controller, and this time that custom event got all of those emitters, activated them, and made them a bit bigger. Now this all happens about 8 seconds into the piece of music. If you had a longer piece of music, it might become a bit of a chore to have to sit through it every time if you're just trying to preview something that happens at the end. So the other thing you could do is on your sequence player here, you can set playback position, and we could set it to something like 7 seconds and put that into the system here so that we wouldn't have to wait each time. It would just skip and start at 7 seconds in. We also want the other particles in the level to be firing off in time with the musical beats. So let's add another event when the music starts. This will be the first beat. So I'll select my event track again, and I'll go to there. I'll zoom in a little bit. I'm going to create my event there, but I'm going to edit its properties because I know that what I want is 3:16. And this time I'm going to tie this to a different custom event, and that is the one called Fire Particle. Now I could add all my other beats by zooming right in and trying to visually match them up with the music using the waveform here. But I already know that my piece of music is in waltz time, so I'm looking for 3 beats per bar or per measure. And it's at a tempo of 139 beats per minute. If we go 60 seconds divided by 139, that gives me my beat interval of 0.43 seconds. So if my first event is at 3.16, I need to create a second event and put that at 3.59. 0.43 seconds after the first event. So that will be my second beat. And again, I'll attach that to the same custom event within that blueprint actor. I'm just going to quickly add the rest of my beats at 4:02, 4.45, 4.88, etc. So there you can see my beats. It goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, hold, and then the climactic note there. Your music may vary in tempo, so you may need to make some adjustments to this kind of thing. So all those events are coming through and they're firing off this custom event here, Fire Particle. And what this does is it goes through our array of emitters and it looks at the actor tag of each emitter, either beat 1, beat 2 or beat 3, to decide which one should activate. So going back to the level, we can see, for example, this emitter here has an actor tag beat 3. Now we count through the beats using this function here, which is a modulo function. What we've got is cycles of 3. This object divides the first input by the second input and returns the remainder. So at beat count 0, 3 goes into 0 0 times and there's no remainder, so that will play beat 1. At beat count 1, 3 goes into 1 0 times, but there is a remainder of 1, so that will choose option 1, which is beat 2. And at beat count 2, 3 goes into 2 0 times, but this time there's a remainder of 2, and so it will play option 2, which is beat 3. And then this cycle repeats, so on beat count 3, 3 goes into 3 one time, and there's no remainder, so we get option 0, etc. This is exactly the kind of smart aleck math shenanigans that programmers get up to just for kicks. To finish off, we just need to add another event track to control our camera. So we're going to go to the end and select that and I know that I want that to happen at 13:56, and that's going to call the custom event switch camera. And as I mentioned before, we actually want to play back the music within the blueprint itself here. So I'm going to connect this up. We're doing this so that we can do some envelope analysis on the music track itself, and we'll be looking at that in a later video. So I just need to go back here, and what I'm going to do now is to mute that original audio that was using as a visual aid, and I'll create an event to start the music, and that will coincide with the beginning of the music track, which was at 2:94, and that will connect to the custom event. Start music. So when we look at the final demonstration of how that all comes together, what we should see is the three sets of particles, there's a blue, a red and a green, firing off in time with the beats of the music, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, until we get that held note and then the musical finale. I'm just going to trigger that cutscene manually this time by walking into this area and pressing Q. Pretty spectacular, I trust you'll agree. In this video, we've seen how you can synchronize game events to your audio by using event tracks in a level sequence. In this instance, we synced some particle effects to a piece of music during a cutscene, but a sequence does not necessarily need to be associated with camera changes and cutscenes. You can use this technique at any time you want to drive in-game events through synchronization with sound or music tracks.